Hi, my name is Kirsten Koenig, and this is my second video presentation. Both the articles Black Trash by Charles Mills and Justice, Work, and the Ghetto Poor by Tommy Selby share some major thematic and conceptual ideas. The ideas discussed by Mills are built upon in Tommy Selby's reading. The first major connection between these articles is their discussion of contracts between the government and the people. Both articles discuss the downfalls of these contracts and the limitations of them based upon the benefits they grant some people but not others. The second connection is that both discuss a relationship between whiteness and citizenship. Both Mills and Selby argue that many people of color are not even recognized as citizens, and Selby builds upon this by arguing what the government should or should not be able to demand of people who may not necessarily be considered citizens. Lastly, in Black Trash, Mills argues that the black body is labeled in a very negative way, and that the black body is seen as usable for work other people would not want to do. Selby then adds to this by discussing what should be expected of people who have been classified in this way. Charles Mills discusses the concept of the racial contract in his article Black Trash. The racial contract is an agreement among a subset of the population to establish themselves as white, and thus as superior to any non-white sub-persons. Selby also discusses a contract, but a slightly different one called the market exchange for mutual advantage. This model argues that the citizens are in a contract with the government, and thus owe the government work. Both of these contractual models have major downfalls. Firstly, a contract requires consent upon entering into it. Yet, Black Americans had no voice in the racial contract, thus it should not be applicable. Also, many people are born into the U.S., thus never consenting to a market exchange contract, but instead being forced into one. Mills includes a discussion on how whiteness has become associated with citizenship in his article. Selby expands on this by arguing that the ghetto poor could only be considered to owe work to society if they were a benefiting member of society. Mills' argument can contribute to Selby's concept because if the ghetto poor are not considered citizens because they are of color, then they would not even be considered a member of society. If the ghetto poor are not members of society, then they have a fair reason to refuse work. If a society is built off of the work of its people, but yet the ghetto poor are not accepted into this society, then it is understandable that they would not want to work to benefit it. Black Trash is appropriately titled because it includes extensive discussion on how the black body is viewed as disposable. Mills argues that the black body is attached to descriptions such as savage, evil, and superproletarianized. These statements that Mills makes contribute to Selby's argument that if a society is unjust, then it is reasonable for the people it is unjust towards to refuse work. The ghetto poor could arguably have been exploited for their work in dirty or undesirable, low-paying jobs in the past. Selby argues that if the society the ghetto poor have been living in, it has denied them fair treatment, such as equal schooling, distribution of wealth, and equal distribution of work, then it is not unreasonable that these people do not want to positively contribute to that society. It is clear that there are many connections between Black Trash and Justice, Work, and the Ghetto Poor. Also, many of Mills's arguments make important contribution to the arguments of Tommy Selby, creating a cohesive and strong argument in the defense of the ghetto poor.